When I stream this, YouTube isn't saving this stream, right?
I'm just refreshing my page here.
Okay. Let's see if the audio is okay. I know I'm in a area with a lot of reverb. There we go.
Right. Yeah, I just got the notification for it here.
Okay. And people's comments will show up on here?
Yeah, they usually do. If you
that's cool.
If you click on the comments there, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. Computer's being kind of slow, of course, too. If you click on the there we go.
Okay, I heard it.
Yeah.
So audio's working. Great. I guess we can jump right into it then.
Alrighty.
So today I introduce myself. I am the book Centrist, aka Dusty Cubes. And we have here Andrew Mindgasms Meinster for the WC Media Club. One of the interesting things about this book is that YouTube is so devoid of discussions about this book. I couldn't find any. I just wanted to get second opinions, at least some video, some quick video content. And Jesus, nobody has talked about this book, it seems. There's even not a whole lot of people have talked about it online in general. I was trying to look up a wiki article, and I could only find the one on Wikipedia. Not a whole lot of people discuss this book, apparently. But I thought, man, is this a weird and interesting sci-fi? And I call it sci-fi fantasy because it's kind of skirts the line between both of those genres.
Yeah, it kind of does.
But one important thing to note, we're actually talking about the first revision of his book. So he published this first, I believe, in 1977 as titled A Planet Called Treason. And then he reworked some of the book and re-released it simply as Treason.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I remember hearing that in his introduction to the book.
Right. He definitely wants this to be made into a film. According to that introduction, I think this would be a pretty interesting film.
Yeah, it sure would, man. Be pretty controversial for our current culture right now.
Oh yeah,
it's all the transgender stuff that we were talking about, right?
Yeah, definitely. He'd have to tiptoe, and the problem with, I guess, Orson Scott Card is that he's kind of in he's on the bad list in the LGBT community.
Yeah, I heard the other day that apparently he's homophobic or something like that.
Well, I've heard that he expressed some views that are consistent with his religion, and he's a Mormon.
Okay.
So, from what I know, is in Mormon religion, as Mormons say, I've never read their doctrine or whatever, but there's an anti-gay bias in their religion.
Yeah, I don't know if that's official.
Yeah, I don't.
The position of the official Mormon Church anymore, though.
But yeah,
that certainly doesn't mean that there aren't Mormons who are homophobic.
Right. I know he kind of retracted some of his statements. I think he had an early statement about that anti-homosexual laws should stay in place and some other nonsense like that. But then I know he turned those comments around and basically said that it doesn't matter. People should be able to marry whoever they like or whatever. So, I don't know. I guess it's
Yeah,
kind of like the
like we were talking about before. I don't think either of us really care that much about authors being terrible people. Like as long as it's not like the purpose of their fiction. Like J.K. Rowling, people are mad at her for, I think, unjustifiable reasons, but then people are mad at Orson Scott Card and especially like Robert Heinlein and H.P. Lovecraft apparently for supposedly justifiable reasons, and even so, I think those authors are great too. So
yeah. I know it's kind of like digging up old tweets when it comes to Orson Scott Card, as I guess he's kind of evolved from some of his previous views, but people still are mad at him because of that. One other thing I found online, and this is funny because it was an article from 2013, a Guardian article, totally misconstruing Orson Scott Card's words. So this is like the headline of the, I don't quite remember it verbatim, but it went something like Orson Scott Card says that Obama will become a Hitler-like in the future.
wow.
Yeah, it was like a really outlandish headline. I'm pretty sure if you look it up real quick, you'll see what I'm talking about. Like
Okay.
Orson Scott Card, Obama, Hitler. And it was a Guardian article. So I read the article, and they're quoting him imagining a creative writing exercise. And they're trying to push it like this is like his actual position in politics when it wasn't at all. And I looked through the comment section, and not everybody, like the vast majority of the comments bit into it. Like, oh, he's such a hater, blah, 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 blah. It's like, dude, it's a creative writing exercise. Like,
that's just like people taking comedians' jokes seriously, like people writing articles saying Dave Chappelle said Michael Jackson was innocent.
Right. So I don't know. It's like totally ridiculous. I'm like, man, these people just don't understand what. Well, then again, that publication was basically lying to them. Like, so I was like, man, this stuff still goes on today. It's like nobody's learned a goddamn thing, you know.
Yep.
But this is from the Guardian. I was like, yeah, this article's full of shit. And I was just like, just shaking my head. They're just basically playing on the emotions of the moment in regards to like the LGBT things that he said in the past.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's so stupid. And like they'll do stuff like that, but they won't get like angry that Obama wasn't in favor of like gay marriage.
Yeah.
You know,
Hillary Clinton wasn't until like 2016 or 2017.
Right. So it's stupid and ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, Orson Scott Card's past really isn't relevant to. He's not the same person. And every place where he made those comments in the past, he's kind of talked about those and like had a change of heart, change of view about the things that he said in the past.
Oh, okay. And redemption's not allowed though.
Yeah, unless you're Obama, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? But anyway, let's talk about this.
Maybe redemption's allowed if you become really anti-Trump, like George W. Bush.
Oh yeah, that's right. And he's unredeemable. I don't know.
He's unredeemable in my eyes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, you guys are stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's like completely forget Iraq
Yeah.
and the whole reason why we're in this shithole to begin with, and just say, hey, he hates Trump, and let's pat him on the back. It's like,
Yeah. You
hell
must be a
no.
good guy now.
So stupid. But yeah, Treason by Orson Scott Card. Now, this book is quite interesting, and I would imagine it's pretty radical if this was written in 77. So let's
Oh
talk
yeah.
about
I
kind of
forgot
like
that it was written that early. Yeah.
yeah, so let's go ahead and establish what's the main thing that's going on. So basically, the planet of this story takes place is called Treason. And what it is a penal colony. A penal colony that is devoid or has very, very little hard metals. So they don't have the resources to leave the planet. So they can't build starships. And basically they're absent of all the benefits that that they would have had they had some form of hard metal to work with. So
Right.
it's a number of families that get exiled to this planet, and it focuses on one character. And this book is first person, by the way.
Yeah.
I didn't have a problem at all with the first person perspective here.
Yeah, I didn't either. I remember Orson Scott Card was saying in that introduction that if he were to rewrite it, he would put it from third person perspective. Do you know if he did that in his rewrite of it?
No, he left, like, the version that we read is the final version.
Okay.
So he had never done that edit. I think it's fine as it is. I don't mind the first person perspective here.
Yeah, me neither.
So, and I think that, like, it's fine. Like, have no issue whatsoever with it. So we follow a character named Lanik Mueller. He is an heir to a kingdom, and the Mueller family has a special ability. Basically, they have like a healing factor, so they can regenerate lost limbs. They heal very quickly, and they also have these during puberty. Apparently, all of the Muellers or everybody that has this ability, they basically just grow limbs and shit at random. And they'll grow like the opposite sexes, reproductive systems, and stuff like that. And then once puberty stops, they get settled into basically their adult form, which is just a normal person with these regenerative healing powers. But unfortunately, Lanik, the heir to the kingdom, becomes something known as a radical regenerative. So what happens with him is that the puberty doesn't stop. He keeps growing like random limbs and noses and eyes and whatever, and he doesn't go back to a normal form.
Mm-hmm.
So the way they find this out is he has boobs, I guess, and they don't go away. Is that what happens?
Yeah, I forgot that part. I forgot that detail. I thought I can't believe I forgot that. I thought like you could also like purposefully grow or choose to grow deliberate body parts or regenerate them. But
Oh
I think
no, you can regrow your own, but you cannot regrow like random parts.
but he
And
didn't like he didn't purposefully grow boobs.
no,
Oh,
he
okay.
didn't do that on purpose.
I thought he did for some reason. But
No.
and then another thing about the type of regeneratives that he is with the specific type of regenerative that he is, They, like you said, they just keep growing new body parts. And I remember hearing something in the book about how that type of regenerative, they just keep growing more and more body parts that what eventually becomes kind of like an accelerated rate until they just kill you out of mercy before you turn into some like fucking massive Akira type blob or some shit like that.
Right. So they put them in these things called pens, and they harvest the extra body parts, and they ship those body parts to the ambassadors in exchange for iron.
Right.
So, like, the upper echelons of the economy of this planet revolve around exchanging things to the ambassadors for iron, because everybody wants to get off of this planet. I don't know why they want to get off of the planet, but they want to get off of it for some reason. Who knows why specifically? They really don't get into that. But hey,
Probably because it's a prison.
Yeah, they come to know that eventually there was no intention whatsoever for them to escape at all. It was just kind of like this carrot on a stick that they would never be able to approach. So, so yeah, he gets exiled because if he's a regenerative. He had the choice of either going to the pens, getting killed by his bastard brother, or being sent on a diplomatic mission. So it's not technically an exile. His father, the king, sends him on a diplomatic mission to Nukumai, which is this other nation that they have inklings that they've been making war in the countryside, and he sends his son to find out.
And this mission is pretty fascinating. He's like, okay,
yeah,
so
it's like one of my favorite parts of the book.
Since you've got boobs now, you're gonna pretend to be a woman and go over there and infiltrate them and try to stop them because they're a rival empire.
Right. So right off the bat, he takes his two horses named Hitler and Himmler.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, weird. I'm not sure why you would name your horses that, but he did. We're assuming, I believe these families originated on Earth. I don't know if he makes that explicit, but these are all common Earth last names that everybody has for the most part. So he goes on his diplomatic mission through the countryside. There are instances where he gets attacked by assassins, and I know this older woman helps him, and someone looking for him comes across the older woman, and she opens his shirt, and her boobs there. They're like, oh no, that's the wrong person. We're looking for a male. But eventually, I think the assassins overheard their conversation and ended up killing the old woman, and he killed the assassins.
Right.
Eventually, he gets to a town, and he gets accosted by some Nukumai soldiers, and I think they just kind of like hog tie him and put him on display or something. But while that's happening, he kicks one of them in the balls, and explains. Well, he basically, when he was accosted by the guards, he was trying to explain that he was a emissary from a town called Bird. So he's obviously lying, because Mueller and Nukumai are at odds. So he didn't want to say that he's from Mueller, and then they're going to kill him right off the bat. So I know after one of the superiors of those people find out that he's just an ambassador or whatever, and he punishes the two guards, but actually one of the guards committed suicide. Do you remember why?
No.
The reason that one of the guards committed suicide is because the kick that Lanik executed castrated the dude. So he castrated somebody by kicking them in the balls.
Yep. That's a fucking strong kick.
Yeah. So, I think that the Muellers have some potential, like, superhuman abilities, because he always kind of comments that he's stronger than basically anybody one-on-one. Mainly by the virtue that Muellers can fight without fear. So if someone is just going to go for a stab in the belly, like, you don't have to avoid it. You can sheath the sword and just kill the other person. By sheathing the sword, I'm just talking about like the common like fantasy move where you allow yourself to be stabbed in order to get close to your opponent so that you can finish them off.
It's like, this guy's behind me, so I'm going to stab myself to stab him too.
Yeah, or, the guy is too good, so I need to have him stab me so that he can't use his sword, so I can stab him back,
Yeah.
So,
or I need to stab him to get him closer to me so I can kill him.
Right. So eventually, I know they apologize to Lanik and have him. Well, all this time, I'm saying him and Lanik, but they're basically think he's a woman from another town that has a matriarchal society.
But do they? I don't remember. Do they address like other things about him looking like a woman? Like, do they try to make him look facially more like a woman or something like that? Because I didn't remember anything other than the boobs, and then like the awkward parts later where that woman wanted to have sex with him and he had to not because she was a lesbian and she thought that he was a woman and she wanted to have sex with him.
Yeah, so I know in the very beginning of the book, they kind of explained that Lanik had a very androgynous look to him.
Okay.
So he was kind of like pretty like a girl, basically. So you could think he probably looks like Alucard or something like that. Could probably pass as a woman if he had tits and whatnot. And we're assuming, he didn't just have tits. He probably had like excess fat in the hips area. Who knows, but apparently, I think he also had female reproductive system as well. So he was probably producing estrogen at a higher level at that point in time. So he had the hormones to pull it off. I don't know if this is something that Orson Scott Card thought of in 1977, but I think it works in this case. So yeah, they thought he was a woman. I think he even tried, if I remember, to raise the pitch of his voice. Because there was this part where, while he was traveling, he started off with a deeper pitch and then he forgot, and then he started raising the pitch of his voice.
Oh, okay. At least the audiobook narrator didn't make his voice as a woman sound like a Monty Python's woman's voice or something. That would have made it impossible to take it seriously.
Well, the narrator of this book,
I'm a woman.
it wouldn't be possible because the narrator of this book has a ridiculously deep voice.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, he's that guy who was like one of the main narrators on all of Orson Scott Card's books that I've listened to, I think.
Yeah, he always plays Graf, like the main general. but I think he's also in the other books also. But usually, yeah, he's a regular for Orson Scott Card books. Personally, he's my favorite Orson Scott Card narrator.
Yeah, me too.
He has some other books too that he does that I'll probably get you from some other series that he's written. But yeah, he has a great voice. It's like any testosterone-filled dude would be envious of this dude's voice. Like he
Yeah.
could probably get chicks without even having them see him. Like he probably makes them wet over the phone without actually doing any type of, any type of talk involving sex. He probably doesn't even have to. He can literally just read the news and
Yeah. We
and
can like read the ingredients on a milk carton.
right, and he'll make those panties drop like
Yeah.
instantly. Yeah, that's how good that this narrator is. But yeah, so he gets brought to like this. I call it Ewok town.
Yeah.
It's like this city or village that's entirely up in these trees. I know on the way to this place, or at least when he was wandering through the woods, he had some weird issues with time, but we'll get to that later. So he shows up and he learns their customs. He is there to talk to the king. And we learn that there's like this weird contradictive way that they talk about how their government works and the way it actually works. Because in their laws, it's illegal to bribe, but the only way to actually talk to people hiring the government is to bribe. So their laws and what they have to do are completely at odds. I think it's kind of, maybe it's his critique on bureaucracy. I'm not sure what he is trying to show here for the Nagumai leadership, or at least how they operate. But
Yeah, I'm not sure either. It seems like I kind of got the impression that their society, like the main character's society anyway, sees their society as like
as savages.
primitive savages. Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and there's definitely a misconception because they're actually far more intelligent than what they seem to be.
Yeah.
And that is evident in their iron. So one thing we learn about the Nagumai is that they don't treat iron with as much reverence as the Muellers do. Like, I guess the Muellers treat iron as like an extremely valuable commodity, much like money in itself, kind of like more of a capitalist society. The Nagumai treat iron like, oh, this is just something that we have plenty of, and it's only valuable to us because it allows us to conquer. And the weird thing about the Nagumai society is that there's definitely two castes, right? There's the upper caste and then there's the lower caste. And it almost seems like they are extremely disconnected from each other. I know in the upper caste, they basically don't really monitor what and how the lower caste does things. And I know they're directed by the upper caste, like, oh, you accomplished this mission, but they don't really care how they do it.
Right.
Yeah, because that's how separated their society is. So one of the main missions that Lanik is on is to find out how they're getting their iron from the ambassadors.
Right.
So we meet one of their leaders. I forgot her name, and I know it's not Okonkwo because that's from a different book. And I tried to look up, like I said, there's so much scarcity of information about this book that I couldn't find the names of any characters except Lanik Mueller. So I would have to literally go through the audiobook again to find out the names of the characters.
Even on Wikipedia or something like that?
Even Wikipedia doesn't have the names of the characters. Like it
wow.
says in the plot synopsis that he met with the leaders of Nakumai, but it doesn't say who the names. And we got to remember too, like some of the leaders have the same names, like teacher. Like they're named by their biggest accomplishment.
Right.
So there's like a lot of people named teacher, and maybe their last name is like who made the stars come about or something like that.
Right.
But Lanik Mueller's mission is to find out, and one of the first things that happens is he tries to build trust with one of their leaders, which is a woman who's known for her singing and her morning song. But she shows him like some swamp gas area and says that they give this gas to the ambassadors. That's how they get their gold or their iron. There is one part in this section of the book that is my favorite part of the book. I want to see if you can guess what it is.
I don't know. The part where that with him and he's trying to come up with all of excuses to prevent him from doing so. That's my favorite part.
You mean when he's trying to avoid having sex? Is that it?
Yeah.
All right, so if we go back, and I remember I told you this a while ago, and this is a while ago, I said that not enough authors put certain things in their books. And this certain thing was definitely in this book. The certain thing I'm referring to is in books, authors tend to not write their characters using the bathroom.
Ah, crap.
Now, there's a significant scene which involves learning how to use the bathroom in the jungle. Do you remember this scene?
No.
You don't remember?
No.
Wow. It's like my favorite scene.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a scene where the female leader and Lanik are in a room, and she's kind of explaining their culture, and Lanik is thinking, well, how do these people use the bathroom? There's like no toilets. You don't remember this part?
No, I don't know why I don't.
Okay, so because in each corner of the room there's like water, and one of the corners of water you can't use, and she goes, the female leader, she says, well, let me go ahead and show you how to use the bathroom. So she like strips naked, she swings over the side of the hut with her butt like sticking out over the edge, and she takes a dump. You don't remember that?
I remembered the swinging part, but I didn't remember that part.
You don't remember that she swung over the side of the hut and then just like dropped the deuce?
I remember that now you mention it, but I totally had forgotten about that.
Like, what books have you read where that would be a common occurrence? Like, none.
Yeah.
What books have you read where it describes somebody taking a dump?
I can't think of it. I can't think of one where it describes it that way.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons this book, I gave it 5 stars.
I know, because you love like people to see it depicted that when people are like peeing or taking a shit.
Because I think people hide reality when they don't include these things in
That's
their
true.
books.
That's
Like
true.
even
Like that.
freaking
Like you know, one that like is just a tiny pet peeve of mine. Some is that in so many movies there are like superheroes who are in insane shape and never have to work out, even if they don't have superhuman powers.
right. And like it's such a like and I'm thinking of like Joe Abercrombie. I only read one instance in where a character was like taking a dump, or at least was about to take a dump.
And that should be more present in grimdark stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, it's in Game of Thrones. When Tyrion's dad was taking a dump or whatever,
He kills him
he
with the
brought out the
crossbow.
crossbow.
Yep.
So yeah, I was like, I was like, yes, finally. And this book came out in '77, so
And that's a
um,
woman taking a shit too. That's
too,
yeah.
because at first she demonstrates, and she's like, and she defecated over the edge of the hut. And then like she washes up, and then she explains that you can't, and they have a special word, because I know she was like, oh, you probably don't know anything about how to drop. And she's like, drop? What's that? So
Drop
they
the juice,
basically,
bro.
yeah, they call taking a dump dropping. So
I want to make that a popular thing. That's a funny because
you
it's
gotta
that it
drop.
really does sound like shorthand for dropping a deuce. Or
Yeah, the drop. So the leader finishes dropping, and she cleans herself using one of the barrels of water, and because each barrel has a purpose, one for washing up after taking a deuce, one for drinking. I forgot what the other one was for, but you definitely do not want to get those mixed up.
yeah, I think that's like a common thing in many different cultures throughout history.
They have
Like there,
different
there's some there's that isn't there that cultural thing with the
the
mud
left hand.
people. Yeah, the mud people in the like Wizards First Rule book in those series, which is based on like some things that some African tribes do, where you use one hand to eat and you use the other hand to wipe your ass, and it's like totally taboo to do that in the wrong order.
Right. But yeah, I was like, yes, motherfucker wrote in a shitting scene in his book.
that
And it's
is a
not
good. That is cool. Like people do shit different ways culturally, right?
right. Um, so, so yeah, you work out.
If I ever get actually have sponsors on my YouTube channel, the only sponsor that I want is Squatty Potty.
Squatty potty. Well, I
Maybe
have one of
Audible too.
those.
Maybe Audible. I love my Squatty Potty. I use it every day. Then you can shit properly.
Okay, so after the demonstration of how to drop is given, Mueller also makes the attempt to do so. We also need to mention that even though Mueller has a pair, if Mueller was seen naked, it would be apparent that something is off, because I
Yeah.
believe he has both sets of genitals. So throughout this whole ordeal, he's trying to make sure to keep his clothes on and not everybody seeing naked. So apparently, casual nakedness is kind of common in this culture,
Yeah.
and he has to create like these crazy cultural reasons why he's so reserved and can't do certain things and can't have sex, and um, It's pretty funny. But
Yeah.
anyway, he does drop, but he has some awkward moments because he has like all these clothes on, and he does mention that he was too tense, so it was hard for the crap to come out. Like literally, that was described.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, they're talking about crapping. How amazing.
I can imagine that happening. There are people who are nervous peers who can't pee when other people are around. So that would
So
make
I've heard crapping talked about in like nonfiction more than fiction. I think that's just because some of the nonfiction that I read is by people who are like either comedians or people who just write funny shit.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because David Sedaris is always writing about farting and shitting like all the time.
Yeah, he's a good author.
It's just weird ass funny observations that you're like, how does somebody observe the world like that? He's just a strange dude.
Yeah.
Like his whole family is strange.
Yeah.
Because his sister is Amy Sedaris, who's a comedic actress.
Oh, I didn't realize they were related.
Yeah, that's his sister.
Oh, okay.
But it must have been the environment. There must have been something where, well, if you've read any of his books, like his dad is a crackpot. Everybody in that family is a crackpot, basically. But anyway, getting back into the story. So yes, there's a crapping scene. Fucking amazing. I think I even bookmarked it in my audiobook player. That was like the only thing I bookmarked. And I wish I could play it so you guys could hear it, but I have no idea how to do that on a cell phone. But anyway, eventually, he bribes his way to a point where he cannot progress. He gets frustrated. But then another thing happens where they discover that he isn't who he says he is. So they lock him up and they torture him. Do you remember what the torture was? I remember, but I didn't know if you had heard and remember what they did to him.
No.
Yeah, so they put him. They put manacles made out of glass on his wrists, which is like not smart if it's a Mueller, because that's not really going to affect him much. But the deal was, it's like, okay, if you relax yourself, because what they have him standing kind of on a pedestal and his arms are tied up above his head. So if he couldn't stand anymore, he would have to put pressure on his arms and the manacles would cut into his arms like pretty severely.
Right.
So
But
the
he can
second,
heal.
yeah, he can heal. The other thing they did was part of his torture is they cut the bottom of his feet like in a crosshatch pattern, like cutting to the bone. Normally this would be, of course, freaking excruciating.
Mm-hmm.
But he can heal. So the idea was fuck up the bottom of his feet and make him hang on these manacles that will cut him if he fails to stand on his feet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a double whammy. What do you want? To experience this pain on the bottom of your feet or succumb to that and allow these manacles to shred your hands?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I guess in Mueller they're trained to be tortured, so it's kind of not much of a big deal to him at all. Even so that he has to like fake scream while he's being tortured.
It's a good idea because otherwise they'll find some way to hurt you.
Yeah, right. True. So he does this fake moaning and screaming. They leave him alone for a while, and then he plans his escape, which is to shear. I think that he shears like his pinky and his ring finger off of each hand with these manacles, and he's traveling in complete darkness in the treetops. Eventually, he gets discovered, and there's a part where he's like climbing on a net, and he gets into a fight with some guy, a knife fight. The guy guts him so much so that his intestines are just kind of dangling out of his stomach.
Yeah.
And he does his whole Lanik Mueller sheath the sword technique. So while he's being stabbed, he's stabbing the other guy, knowing that he's going to survive
Yeah.
the stabbing.
Using the sword is a fucking great idea if you know you can heal, right?
Right. So he basically kills the guy, and then he travels to the bottom of the net, and he has nowhere else to go because they're coming from the top. So what eventually happens is he drops from the net, and he wakes up eventually, but he's still pretty jacked up. His stomach is just like perforated. His intestines are. He's just kind of dragging them along. And during this, becomes delirious as he's trying to escape, and he has like some weird dreams about him holding a baby and caring for it. But it turns out that these aren't dreams. He was actually caring for a baby, and this baby was actually just a growth that came out of his intestines.
It's fucking weird, man.
Yeah, so the growth was actually a duplicate of him. That actually, by the end of his spell of delirium, um, the duplicate copy of him was like almost of adolescent age. And he is like, nope. And he brained it with a big ass rock. and
Yeah.
he went on his way. It's pretty. I would say this is probably the most graphic section of the book, and it's pretty weird. Like,
Yeah,
you're
man.
like, what the hell? He has like this thing growing out of him, and it's turned into a complete clone of him, and then he kills it by smashing its brain out. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. So I guess he starts healing up a little bit, and he heads to the coast, and he's trying to evade like the Kumai search parties. And in a last ditch effort, he jumps into the sea, and he finds like a boat, finds him, and they pick him up. He finds out that these people are slavers, and guess what? He becomes a slave.
Yep.
So what happens is he becomes a slave, and he starts to turn into that gruesome thing that he had feared. He starts growing multiple limbs and stuff, and they have him basically in the whole of the ship, just kind of isolated from everybody. And they throw in food every once in a while, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And he's
Yeah, and he has to
down.
like hide his limbs that he randomly starts growing at first. Like he grows an arm on his back, and he's like, "Oh shit, how can I get a shirt over this?"
Yeah, he can't wear clothes, obviously.
Yeah.
Not anymore. So he's basically this weird, multi-limbed, naked man with two noses and whatnot. And then he hears that some of the slaves are taken up the deck, and he moans and complains about it. And he's told the only reason that they're up there at the deck is because I think they were going to kill some of them or something, or like something. There's not a good reason that they would be up there.
Yeah.
So he says he doesn't care. He wants to come out. So they open it up, and everybody is just like frozen in shock at seeing this grotesque creature emerge. He immediately capitalizes on the situation and kills a couple of the crew members. I don't remember if he kills the captain or not. I think he does, but I'm not quite sure. But anyway, obviously they don't have the resources to kill him. Plus, they're very superstitious. So he's like this monster that just viciously killed two sailors by hand. Like, he's not armed. He just ripped them apart using his physicality. Like, they describe it as he just ripped them to shreds.
Yeah.
So you have this giant multi-limbed human centipede monster just killing things, and everyone is just like freaking the hell out. So he talks to them because they're like in awe and extremely afraid of the guy. And he says, all I want you to do is drop me off at the next port or something like that. But from what I remember is that they don't do that. They basically were trying to plan to kill him, but he jumps off the boat or something like that, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So he jumps off the boat and he washes the shore in this place. It's just like a barren desert, and some naked man comes up to him and heals him. Because he was going through the desert. He was actually traversing the desert for, I think, like almost a week before he's discovered by the naked man in the desert.
Right.
And the naked man heals him. And when I say heals him, is he was like all beat up. He was hungry. He was like half starved and near death. The naked man purges the radical regenerative ability out of Lanik Mueller, and he becomes just a normal, not normal, he still got the healing abilities, but he doesn't have the radical regenerative abilities.
Right. So he's not like growing extra limbs all over the place anymore.
Nope, not anymore. He's fixed. So he is very interested in the person that fixed him and wants to learn what they did. And he wants to basically become one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, holy shit, these people are powerful in their own way. And he wants to learn from them. And this is kind of I guess, something that he just does throughout this book is he goes to peoples and he learns what they're all about. So in this case, he stays with these people, and they're called Schwartz. And this was one of the families that was exiled. One thing I want to mention as well is that when Lanik was in Nikumai, he did find some books that explained some histories about the families that were sent and what they specialized in. And he knew that the Schwartzes specialized in geology. So it's always some type of science that they specialized in. The Muellers were geneticists. The Nikumai, I think, yeah, if I remember correctly, he did eventually find out the real reason the Nikumai were getting medals. And that's because the Nikumai invented faster than light travel.
Right.
And sold it, and they got.
So obviously they're not fucking savages, right?
Yeah. So the one thing we find out is that the Nikumai were physicists.
Right.
That was what their specialty was, and that's what they sold to the ambassadors for metal. So they're not stupid people. They're just weird. And the same goes for these Schwartz people. Like the Schwartz people, they talk like cavemen almost.
Yeah.
Like German cavemen, like cavemen with heavy German accents. At least that's what they sound like in the audiobook. Uh, but he lives and he finds out that their power stems with quote unquote talking or having a conversation with the earth. And one of their demonstrated powers is that they have the ability to control the earth. Um, a single person can control it on a small scale. So we're talking about moving rocks, like molecularly changing rocks,
Yeah.
turning what, like, I don't know if, because they didn't really explain how the water got there. I don't know if they pushed the water from underground or if they turned the sand into water. I think
Mhm.
they could
Like
also
this is
go,
like this is where it gets into Lennox developing like godlike powers like them, and things like you were describing, and also like being able to alter his biology to make himself feel the sustenance from food without eating, or some crazy shit like that too.
well, yeah, we find out that the Schwartz, they don't eat, and the reason that they don't eat is because they photosynthesize. So they don't need to eat or drink. They just live off of the sun's rays. Um, and one of the things he learns about the Schwartz is that they follow the way of the leaf.
Right.
They are complete pacifists,
Yeah.
and in any, like, they're extreme pacifists, and they do have some philosophical conversations about why that would be incorrect way of thinking. But he eventually, so what are the abilities? He gets the ability to like not have to breathe for very long periods of time. Uh, he doesn't have to eat. Apparently, he can like run for days and days without getting tired. So it's almost like he has an extreme endurance as well.
Yeah.
And then you couple that with the ability to heal very fast. And I refer to the Schwartzes as the Dr. Manhattans because
Pretty much. Yeah.
they're basically kind of removed from the world and they don't really care that much what's going on in the rest of the world. And they hang around with their dongs out, like in the middle of the desert,
Yeah.
which is basically what Manhattan did, but on the moon. Um, or was it the moon or Mars? I know it was some planet off Earth, but so he learns their ways. They're complete pacifists, and they can't. And he actually becomes the strongest. So he learns their ways and is stronger than them in their own. I don't know what you want to call it. It's basically magic.
Yeah. And their
What
own
they
power.
do. I don't. There's like no science behind it. He
Yeah.
talks to the earth. That's what they call it, talking to the earth.
Yeah.
One day he's playing with Helmet. I think that's the name of one of the other Schwartzers. So he's playing with Helmet in the sky because apparently he can form like platforms and shit and jump around. And what he does is he removes Helmet's platforms and he tumbles to the ground and then he nopes out of there. He leaves
Right.
because he wants to help. Like the earlier philosophical conversation he had with these Schwartzers was that um, I need to help my family, and what's isn't like being loyal good.
Yeah.
He talks about like the
And his
morality of.
dad's and his dad's kind of like a fucking unbelievable dick, to say the least, right?
Well, we find out that his dad really isn't as bad as we think he is when he comes back, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It seems that way at first, more so.
Yeah. So what happens is, yeah, he does go back. He finds out that, like, from the outskirts, because he goes running naked right through the forest. And then he shows up at some town with no clothes on, like very casually, like it's normal. And the people do offer him some clothes. But the funny thing is, the people heard about him before he even got there. It's like, oh, the man that runs through the forest with no clothes, it's him. But he finds out from the townspeople that there's like some war going on. The Nikumai has expanded, and um, when he tells them their name, everybody goes silent, and they just kind of scamper back into their hovels. He's like, "WTF, man!" Like, I tell him my name, and everyone's scared now. So he starts traveling, and people recognize him as being Lanik Mueller. And this is when we find out that apparently they said that he himself had been part of this war ravaging, like, the countryside. And he's like, what the fuck? I've been in Schwartz for like a year. There's no way that the person that you're talking about is me. So eventually, I think he gives himself up and he gets captured. And he gets taken to Mueller, where he's trying to explain himself, and his brother is currently, I guess, running things. And they go back and they have a trial, right? And it's not favorable. He pleads his case. Nobody believes him because he tells the truth, and he figures out that, oh yeah, a clone of me is running around. A clone that generated out of my intestines is now in league with the Nikumai. Of course, it sounds ridiculous to everybody. So he gets sentenced to death, and his ex, I don't know, what do you want to call her? Is it like his fiance?
Yeah, kind
Like,
of.
kind of breaks him out of prison. And then they meet up with their dad, and the dad kind of explains like the situation going on Mueller. And he says, "Yeah, your brother has completely seized power. Um, like, even before I banished you, I had been losing power through schemes that your brother and my wife were running or something. So, in order to save his hide, that's why he exiled him instead of just he didn't have the power. I don't know. I don't know. It wasn't very. I wouldn't say that part was very well thought out. But apparently, the king did not have as much power that he perceived to have had. So what ends up happening is he says, "Hey, I'm going to go with you." Um, so both he, his fiance, and his dad escape. And I guess what he wants to do is kind of travel and find all the people that are loyal to the king, create an army, depose his brother, and then move forward with things. So he's trying to create an army, and then I think he gets a good like 6,000, and then
Yeah,
he gets cornered and followed by the Nikumai army, and their backs are to the Kukwe forest, and he makes a proposal to escape into this forest. So there's a lot of superstition surrounding this forest, and nobody wants to go in it. So he convinces a lot, but there are a shitload of deserters who just desert the army because they weren't willing to go into this forest. I think they end up with 2,000. And then at one point, while they're in the forest, they get even fractured further. So what happens is, I think he goes on his own to talk to the Kukwe. Like, he finally figures out what is going on with this forest. So they figure out that, hey, we're getting like super tired, and within an hour we've walked, it seemed to walk like 10 miles, but the sun's not moving. This is fucking strange. So he thinks that somebody is responsible for that. So he goes out and he eventually is able to make first contact with the Kukwe, and he convinces them that he's like basically come in peace, and that, hey, we need help, and we just need to hide out. And the Kukwe are like, okay, fine, go back and get your people. So he goes back, and everybody is fucking slaughtered.
Yeah.
Like most of the army. So, and with the army, I believe the only survivor was his fiance.
Yeah.
So the only ones who survive are Lanik, his fiance, and his dad. They are the only 3 survivors for this entire trek. So they eventually go with the Kukwe. And what is the Kukwe? What do they do, Andrew?
I don't remember.
It's funny because I almost draw complete parallels to their ability and Wayne's ability in the second era of Mistborn. So what they do is they create time bubbles around themselves, and they
Right.
could speed up time within the bubble, or they can slow down time within the bubble.
Yeah, that's the exact same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wonder if Sanderson read this and got that idea from this. But anyway, he learns, well, they all learn. The king learns, the fiance learns. The fiance seems to be actually pretty good at learning this time bubble stuff. Lanik is actually not that great at it. He's not that good at the time bubble stuff. But eventually, I know for sure Lanik gets cucked. Do you remember that?
No.
You don't remember that Lanik gets cucked? And he's like,
I don't know
okay
why I
with
forgot
it?
so much of this book. I must just read too many books.
He's like completely okay that he got cucked. You don't remember that?
No.
Okay, so basically, I guess like Kukwe society is kind of like this free love society. And Lanik stays monogamous, but his fiance is just like fucking everybody. And
Oh,
he,
right. Yeah.
and there's like a scene where like she's fucking some Kukwe, like, and all the Kukwe people are like super overweight and fat. So there's a couple descriptions where Lanik is like seeing her fuck in one of the time bubbles, where like they're going like super slow, and then he also sees them fuck like ridiculously fast.
Yeah.
And he's watching his fiance do this, by the way.
Yeah, man.
He's like, oh, I don't feel the need to be untrue to her. So he basically just gets cucked.
Yeah, it's sad.
His dad gets super depressed and attempts to kill himself by throwing himself down a hill, and he fails. I'm not sure why he got so damn depressed, but he eventually succeeded in killing himself by drowning himself, I believe. He like made it so that his neck got broken on the way down, and then the broken neck couldn't heal fast enough for him to like not drown. And then another one of the Kukwe people like committed suicide too by always being in fast time, so that they
Oh, right.
yeah, they like sped up. And I guess when you're in fast time, I'm trying to think of what would happen. Like you would see someone's bubble and everything they do is like really, really fast. So in their perspective, they're living a life where everybody is slow except him. So I don't even know how it's like he still had to live a full life. So I don't know if it really is committing suicide.
Is like, did he just like go in fast time so much that he just accelerated the aging process until he died, kind of?
Well, he was always in fast time, so he was always faster than what everybody else was.
Right.
So imagine like you're at home, right? And everything around you in the outside world moves at 1 millimeter a second, and it takes like an hour for 1 minute to pass.
Okay.
So that means that you're going to age like relatively fast, but you're not actually aging fast. You're aging at a normal rate. It's just that the world is so slow. When the outer world sees you, they see you aging fast as fuck, but you don't actually experience that fast aging. You're aging normally, but everything around you is slow as hell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, because I was reading someone's critique of the book, and like, oh yeah, some guy committed suicide by speeding up his movements. I was like, that's not committing suicide. He's just living a normal lifespan, except he is like everybody would be slow around him.
Yeah.
And he plans to leave. Lanik plans to leave after his father dies and this elder dies, and his girlfriend is like cucking him pretty hardcore. Uh, so what happens is he tells his fiance that he wants to leave, and then she goes into like super slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he goes out and he goes back into the world, and he goes to a town where he makes some observations about how the new like nobles are treating people. I know he plays a trick on one of them using his new time skills. So he uses his time skills to troll somebody, and it's like a noble. And what he does is, I think he like causes the noble to trip, and he also uses his Schwartz skills by turning the front, like where he's going to fall into like a huge puddle of mud. So he does this, and bam, like the dude freaking falls into like a mud puddle. And while he's doing that, he's just like casually like looking around, and he's like, oh shit. He looked and he saw what he thought was like an old bald white man in a like carriage. And when he went back to normal speed, the old bald white man was now magically the woman that was leading the Nagumai. He's like, oh, that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually he's like, fuck this. I'm gonna basically go on walkabout. I don't know what you want to call it. But he goes to like some small ass town and becomes like the hermit like Jesus figure.
I'm gonna go roam the earth like the guy in Kung Fu.
Basically, he becomes that. And he goes to some small town. I forgot the name of that family, but it's like a farming town. And he heals. He's known as the Man in the Wind or something like that. Basically, like low grade Jesus. And eventually, like his notoriety does catch up to him in this town. I think this town had like one of the families he was staying with. One of the women was in labor, and the baby was like pointing the wrong way, and there was like
Oh,
some
right.
huge taboo about men being present in the room where the women are having birth. And he's like, "Fuck this! I'm going to help her." So he basically, I think he performed a C-section or something. No, that's not what he did. He broke the baby's neck. While he was pulling the baby out, broke its
Because it was a
neck and
healer.
back.
It was a healer, right? A healer, or whatever you call those. That he knew the baby had that power.
No, he himself healed the baby because
Oh,
he
right,
has the
right, right.
power.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Fuck!" He broke a baby's neck and back, and pulled the baby out all crumpled up and fucked up, and then he healed the baby. And then they're like, "Yay, the Man of the Wind" or whatever. And then one day, he's like happy farming and learning farming from these people, and some messenger from the big house comes down, and it's like some dude is like, "Oh, the baron over here in this house needs to see you." Blah 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 blah. Eventually, he goes up to the house, and the baron knows who he is, who he really is, and he outs him. He's like, "Lanik Mueller, blah blah blah." Oh no, yes, Lanik Mueller. So anyway, the guy is a historian. That was what his family was known for. And he starts to point out some inconsistencies about that there's some other type of family here and there's some weird shit going on. So he starts to tell Lanik a story about what was the first? He tells him two stories. I know he tells him a story about himself regarding his own son. And his son is actually the leader of some type of like a federal union or something. But he went and he did some digging into his own history, and he talked to a man who was like his wife's doctor. And he's like, "Oh yeah," because his wife had died, I believe. And the doctor is like, "Oh yeah, I'm glad you're remarried." And he's like, "Oh, I never remarried. What are you talking about?" Like, "Oh, yeah, I thought you would have remarried because your wife was incapable of having children." And he showed him a document of her medical history, and she had a hysterectomy.
Right.
So it's like, how is that possible? So he tries to remember these facts going home, and he's having a very tough time doing so. Remembering the fact that his wife was not able to bear children. So this puts in doubt. We're like, okay, let me think about my memories about my son. And he didn't have any memories about his son up until a certain point.
Right.
So then he asked Lanik, it's like, "What do you remember about you and your brother's childhood?" Lanik doesn't remember any of it. So this drives some doubts in Lanik, and he's like, "Yeah, I believe that there's some type of family here that manipulates us in some way. They're able to create these illusions, and that there's a conspiracy. He believes that there's a conspiracy where they're all being put into powerful places."
Right.
and that his brother might be one of those people. So while he's explaining this, his friend gets attacked by his servant, and then his servant switches places with them. It's like a really, it's a scene that I didn't get. You don't get it the first time you read it because it just doesn't make sense. So
Mm-hmm.
what happens is the old man is sitting and he's like eating, and the servant is about to serve him. And what he sees is that the servant dies, and then his friend, the historian, runs out of the room. And then when he goes and checks the servant, it's actually his friend.
Mm-hmm.
So he does his magic and basically heals him from who got almost decapitated. That's how they described it. So he brought him back from decapitation, and he explains what happened. And that kind of
Yeah.
cements in him the idea he has to go after this guy. And
That's pretty fucking insane. An insane level of healing capability. Hey, you've been beheaded. I can still bring you back to life.
yeah, I think literally they described it as like there was like one sinew holding his neck. So he basically put his neck back on. Um, so he's like, "Oh, we got to catch this guy." So he says to the man, "Like, you stay in your house, stay safe here, and I'll go after him." So he goes over to the next town, and he had already like sowed some lies. So once he gets there, they all know that he's Lanik Mueller, and they capture him, and they're going to put him to death. So when he's about to be put to death, of course, he uses his powers and is able to escape. And the way he uses his powers, how does he do it? I kind of forget. I just think he escapes before they even. No. What they do is they kill him, or they think they kill him,
Mm-hmm.
by shooting him full of arrows, and then they bury him. And he just like, oh no, I can heal and shit. So he takes all the arrows out and goes about his way.
Yeah.
And then when he goes, he finds out that his friend had followed him, and he was actually also going to be executed. So he shows up at his friend's execution. He catches all the arrows, and he basically shoves them all into the archer's hands, creating like this supernatural effect, and he saves the guy. So after that, shit, what happens? I kind of forget, but I know ultimately he makes his way back to. No, he doesn't make his way back to Mueller. He finds out. I think the historian tells him more information about the family backgrounds, and he finds out that there's like this Anderson family that possibly might be the source of all this.
Right.
And I'm trying to think, does he go back to Mueller first? No, he doesn't.
No.
He goes. Well, he learns about this Anderson family, right? And he actually how does he gets to the Anderson Island, but I forget how he got there. Do you
Yeah, I don't
remember how he
remember.
got there?
No, I don't remember either.
I think he like took a boat or chartered a boat or some shit like that. Because he's going around the world trying to find this family that's has these crazy like illusion powers. So he goes to Anderson. He finds like this nice little shack and this lovely young woman, and she takes him in. And he uses his time power briefly and sees that it's an old man, and he's like about to stab him. So they get into like this crazy Matrix-esque fight, like illusion fight. That's actually pretty cool and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But he eventually does take the dude out, and he, now that he knows where these Andersons are, he plans to genocide them.
Yep.
And he can't do it himself. So his plan is he wants to sink the entire island. So he goes back to the Schwartzes and has a philosophical debate with them again about what is worse, allowing these monsters to live and terrorize the planet, or just like getting rid of them. Of course, the Schwartzes are extreme pacifists, so even if the outcome would have been better, they still can't do it. And they explained to Lanik, hey, do you remember when you killed that guy? Because we heard it. And they explained to him, imagine if you killed that entire island. Because when you killed that one guy, wasn't it very painful? And like Lanik agrees. So killing an entire island, you wouldn't be able to recover from that.
Yeah, for sure.
But for some reason, he's able to convince them to help him anyway. So they're like, well, we won't be the ones doing the actual deed, but we will lend you our powers. So they fucking sink an entire island of people. We can assume that not everyone is evil on this island,
Mm-hmm.
but they kill everybody.
Yeah.
So he genocides a whole island. And after he genocides the island, he goes to the mainland to find and kill all of the rest of the Andersons.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then here's some weird shit. So he finds the different Andersons, and this leads him all the way back to the Mueller Kingdom. And there, of course, there's some Andersons there. And when he goes to his brother, and he looks at him in fast time, which whenever you do the time distortion, whatever illusion that they're using gets unmasked. And he finds out that the person who his brother is himself, but in a radically rad regen. So it's the clone that had been running around pretending to be him, but this clone did not have the benefit of being cured of the radical regenerative disease. So he was all limbs and shit.
Yeah.
But he explains that he had actually been taught by one of the Andersons how to use their power.
Mm-hmm.
And he tries to make a good case that he's not evil, saying that the person that that he wasn't the one that was actually terrorizing the countryside, because this whole time he was the prince or his brother. It's fucking confusing as fuck.
Yeah, it is, right?
Like I didn't get how that was possible, considering his brother was there before he got banished.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what the fuck? Did he kill his brother? What the fuck is going on? Like, I don't know. I don't really explain it. But anyway, he gives his brother a pass and basically tells him that you're the purest form of me, and I'm like the tainted one. So you're going to continue on and be Lanik Mueller.
Right.
So he cures his brother's radical regenerative disease. And then right after that, he goes and destroys the last ambassadors. And I think that's the end of the fucking deal.
Yeah. It's so, like you said, it's so weird and bizarre, this book.
Yeah, because the guy becomes like Dr. Manhattan by the end of the book. He's like this. A thing I forgot to tell you is that the Schultzes, they basically are immortal. They do not,
Yeah.
they don't die. So this new Lanik Mueller, he's immortal. He has the power to genocide an entire island. He doesn't need to eat. He doesn't need to sleep. He can heal people. It's nuts. Like he's like, if he were a Marvel character, there'd be, he probably, if he was a DC character, maybe even be able to kill Superman. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's a weird fucking, like, I loved like the aspect I told you. Explaining cultural differences by the way that they shit.
Yeah.
That's fucking amazing that he did that.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, you have done what I would have only dreamed of doing.
Yep.
By writing shit into your book. Like people taking, or someone teaching a lesson through taking a shit. Wow.
So this book is in the category of masterpiece for you because the mastery of exploring cultural differences through shitting?
Yes.
Awesome.
In fiction. Right. I
was
like, wow, this is, and I was really disappointed that the Legendarium episode did not talk about this scene at all. I was trying to find affirmation that this was a great scene in the
I didn't
book.
know that Legendarium did an episode on this. I should listen to that.
Well, I'll tell you this. The Legendarium is the reason why I read this book.
Oh, okay.
It's not because I listened to that episode. Usually I'll look and see what they've read, and I'll try to read it myself before I listen to it. So, like many of the books that I've read I just go through the Legendarium show list and see what they've read. I was like, okay, I'll check this out. That's kind of how I find some fantasy books and some sci-fi books. Okay. But yeah, they have a Legendarium episode, and they did not mention that shitting scene. It's very disappointing.
Did you comment on the episode and said, I'm sorely disappointed you guys did not mention the shitting scene?
No, I don't even know if they have like a YouTube version of that one, because it's an older episode. I think it's before they had their whole YouTube set up, so I don't actually think there's a YouTube video for it. Uh-oh. You got stuck? You're frozen? You're gay?
Yeah. Am I back now?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay.
But yeah, I just want to make it plain here on the internet. Hey, there's a video praising the shit scene in Treason. This is probably the only video on the internet that you're going to find that talks about this scene. I'm pretty sure maybe
a rare nugget, people. Spread it everywhere.
Yeah, rare. This very obscure information.
Yes.
I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes this book extremely unique. It's one of the things that makes this book extremely unique.
One of the many things that makes this book extremely unique.
Yeah, it's like, if I were to describe the science fiction aspect of it through magic systems, this would be the equivalent of a soft magic system if you were to apply it to science fiction. It's like super soft sci-fi. It's not really hard at all.
No.
Because they don't explain, like, these powers that everyone has are supposed to be somewhat based on science, but there's no explanation really other than oh, we've been doing genetic research for 3,000 years, so now we're at the level where we can heal fast. Or we've been physicists for 3,000 years, so now we know how to do faster than light travel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we've been geologists for 3,000 years, therefore we basically are now immortal. Like that's kind of the sci-fi element in this book. Oh, we've been politicians for 3,000 years, therefore we can create illusions and lies. Right? Because that's what the Andersons were. They were the politicians. Such a weird book.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so
It's
let's go
definitely
ahead.
the most interesting exploration of transgenderism that I've ever come across.
Yeah, so that first half of the book is like, it's definitely weird. I guess what the main character has this issue where they have both sexual organs and they have breasts. So he definitely takes advantage of that. We'll say that. Um, it's such a weird book. But
Yeah.
all right, let's talk about rating this thing. So what did you think?
I think I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, I thought it was really good. The like I said, the transgenderism stuff, and then him basically becoming a god, and all those
Yeah,
interactions between people and their different cultures and their cultural differences.
yeah, he
And
basically became Goku, and then yeah, it's such a weird freaking book. I love
yeah,
it. It's not Jeff Vandermeer weird, but it's still pretty weird.
yeah,
And I was just blown away. I gave it 5 stars. Um, Normally it would be 4 for me, but that shit scene just earned its own star. So its unique take on examining culture through shitting is just wow. That's touche.
yeah.
Orson Scott Card.
Main themes of this book: transgenderism, shitting, and god powers.
I guess I'm gonna have to add that to the description.
Yeah,
Transgenderism, shitting, and God powers.
yeah.
Like what kind of move? Like just those 3 words. What would you expect?
Something fucking weird.
Yeah, and that's what you would get. Because it's a weird book. So maybe I'm hoping one day they make a movie out of this. I hope Orson Scott Card gets his wish and this becomes a film of some sort. Like I'd even be fine with it becoming like an animated movie or an anime or something. But I think this needs to be optioned. Somebody needs to option this bitch
Yeah, that would be cool.
and make a movie out of it.
Possible since they made Ender's Game into a movie.
Yeah, so far that's his only book that was made a movie. And from what he has said, like Ender's Shadow and Ender's Game, they said they drew from both of those books for the movie.
Yeah.
But man, would Treason make an awesome? But I don't know. Treason would be. I don't know. Maybe our era is just too woke for that movie.
Yeah, people would definitely get mad about it, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I would. I gotta check some of these reviews. I didn't check the Goodreads reviews for this book, but I'm assuming some people got pissed off
Yeah.
about it.
Some people could make a big stink about it if they wanted to.
Yeah. Mainly like
Orson
the
Scott Card should be
transgenderism stuff.
cancelled. He's not transgender and he's writing transgender characters.
Well,
In 1977.
yeah, it's like nobody cared about transgender shit back then.
Yeah.
And then they called the Nagumos like the blacks. Like there were obvious like slurs that they were using. They're calling them the Inkies
Yeah.
as well. So he was definitely drawing on, American sentiments when it comes to describing different groups and stuff
Mm-hmm.
by skin color in this case.
And then because people think that authors literally share the beliefs of the characters they write, they might think, "Oh, cancel, because he's racist too,
Yeah.
and he's
So dumb.
pro-imperialism."
All right. But yeah, 4 stars and 5 stars. So check this shit out. It's good stuff, man.
It's really interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it's even though it was written in 77, I was like, man, this is some refreshing shit,
Yeah.
Very unexpected.
I like it doesn't feel like it still holds up for sure, even though it was written in 77.
Yeah, because I know it was updated in like 86 or 87. So I don't know. I'm even interested in probably tracking down his original version and seeing what the difference was.
Yeah.
But yeah, 4 stars, 5 stars. Read this shit.
For sure.
It's short too, so
Yeah,
it's
it
not
is.
a huge honking book. It's very well paced.
Yeah.
Like there's not like a bunch of boring exposition or anything like that. So yeah, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, me
So,
too.
what books have you been reading?
Well, today I read Spinoza's Ethics, which is, well, I thought it was fairly interesting. He has some more sophisticated arguments than I expected, which is usually the case with philosophers, and like especially even for like positions that I don't necessarily agree with. Like he believes in God and is a rationalist, but I made a video about applying his definition of God as monism, as like everything is God, but you could also just substitute the word for God as nature, is as in like everything is just part of nature because the universe is all one thing. And so like even though he's a rationalist, he has some really sophisticated arguments, and he's been a really influential philosopher on a lot of other philosophers that I'm fans of and or just find really interesting, like Deleuze, for example, wrote a lot about Spinoza, and he's a fairly interesting thinker, I would say. So that was an interesting one. And
Yeah, I've heard that name, Spinoza. I just didn't really know who it was all about.
Yeah, he's one of the most famous philosophers for sure, especially like his monism, his substance monism look at God or the universe or something like that. And
yeah, whenever I hear his name, I was like, isn't his name missing like an E in front of it?
Why?
Because Espinosa is like a common Spanish name,
right.
so like Spinoza.
I think
he was like trying to be edgy.
I think he was like Italian or like.
Oh, so he's not like Spanish or anything.
He was like an Italian Jew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Spinoza. You have to say it like an Italian. Like Daniele. Even though Daniele doesn't have like that stereotypical, what we call Italian accent. I wonder, like next time you talk to Daniele, can you ask him to do like a stereotypical version of an Italian that like Americans, like the American version of an Italian.
That's a
Because
good
it's so
idea.
different. It's like not even close to what Daniele sounds like.
Yeah. Daniele Borelli.
Because he has some of the pronunciations, but he doesn't have that kind of like musical intonation that the stereotypical like impressions have.
Yeah. It reminds me of those guys pretending to be Italian in Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah, basically.
Like they basically just said the same phrases in like the musical Italian accent. No, sir. I like the spicy meatballs.
And it's funny because his accent still has twang, so it's like it's weird because Brad Pitt is doing a Southern accent plus Italian, so
Yeah,
that's some skill there.
Like, yeah, I never thought of that before. He's playing a guy with a Southern accent, struggling to do an Italian accent because he can't get rid of his Southern accent. Arrivederci.
Well, he doesn't even try that hard though, but that's funny that he is like mixing those two accents together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we got way off track there.
Yeah. So I also listened today to someone reading an essay of Foucault's essay called "What is an Author," which has been compared to I forget who the famous author is, but someone who wrote something fairly similar called "The Death of the Author," and it's kind of Foucault's idea that I think you and I probably talked about before, to do with, you know, the idea that once an author has written something, basically it's open. They're open to whatever they've written is open to interpretation from people, and people can even come up with interpretations that are totally different from what the author intended in the first place. And even those people's definitions or interpretations are not necessarily invalid, and but also like that means that the author is not responsible for any like wild misinterpretations of their work or anything like that, basically.
Yeah. I guess that borders on how wild is wild and how much, like how wild is what is claimed to be wild. You know, like if someone says this is this, and then some crazy fool acts on it, like how wild is wild? Like what if it is actually really close? Or is it using that as a defense to shirk responsibility for what they said, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like
did you know shit is good for your health? And some dude eats some shit. I was like, no, you interpreted that incorrectly.
Yeah, that's true. Like they're like even like Foucault and Derrida, as you know, they're not like relativists. Like he makes the clarification, and Derrida does too. They both do all the time. That doesn't mean like that no definitions mean anything or anything like that. It doesn't mean like that you can interpret it like the proper, as Jordan Peterson would say, you could say that the proper interpretation of Shakespeare is literally anything. Like basically Shakespeare means you should go around giving candy to babies so you can manipulate them and rape babies. Or
yeah, I think basically what they're trying to say is that different interpretations exist,
Yeah,
and
and
that
different interpretations, like interpretations of the author's original work, kind of take over the original meaning of what the author intended, whether they want that to happen or not, even if their message is communicated and received really clearly by people, because like the discussion of it within the culture impacts how the message is received, that kind of message basically.
yeah, I think the easiest thing to point out to would be like the different Protestant offshoots of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Like they all have their own interpretations of what is true or what to act upon or what on the Bible. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
Pentecostals are very, very different from Baptists, and they
Yeah.
have their
Yeah, for
own
sure.
like customs and interpretations of what the Bible means to them. And
Yeah,
who's to
for
say
sure.
which one's more correct? Like we can't
Yeah.
say, oh, the Protestants, Pentecostals more valid than this and that. It's like no, they kind of just made their own thing, and that thing is valid to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Actually, that's actually relevant to another book that I'm reading right now is I think it's called Here I Stand, and it's a biography about the life of Martin Luther, which is interesting because I've read a little bit here and there, like articles and seen documentaries about the Protestant Reformation, but this goes into more detail. So that's really interesting too, because obviously the Protestant Reformation, the entire thing started based on what became a giant split within Christianity about interpretations of the Bible and Christianity itself, and like the desire to allow the common people to interpret the Bible themselves instead of just having it read to them in Latin in a language they didn't understand, with the priest facing the front of the front of the church with the back to the congregation. And I think it's interesting too that in this book there are a lot of little tidbits of information that I didn't know, like that his Martin Luther's desire to bring about like to change the church basically was brought about by his fucking extreme piety. Like he would pray for hours and hours a day, and he just couldn't find grace. So he wanted to be able to better find like divine grace basically, and he thought that getting rid of what he saw as corruption in the church, which was corruption in some ways, was the best way to do that. Like he was extremely critical of indulgences, which was people being allowed to pay money to supposedly get their souls out of purgatory and pay the church to put their souls in heaven.
Mm, yeah, that's definitely sounds a bit corrupt.
Yeah, for sure. I want to make a video about this book because a lot of it is really interesting. Like Martin Luther was really respectful of the people he was criticizing in some ways, but even just being mildly critical was warranted threats of him being burned at the stake. But then other people, even he said some radical shit sometimes. Like he literally compared the Pope to the Antichrist because of how corrupt he was.
Mm, okay. All right.
Oh yeah, so we were talking about how I also read Cibola Burns recently, Expanse #4, and Earth Awakens, the third book in this Orson Scott Card's or third book in the first Formic War trilogy.
Doesn't that Formic War trilogy? It's like super action packed.
Yeah, it is.
Mazer Rackham is in it.
Yeah, his
Um,
character's really cool, especially in the third one.
and we also have kind of like the overall. I guess there's just something with Orson Scott Card and Genius Kids. So in this one, it's like a Chinese kid that's like a genius kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like the Hispanic kid who's like an extremely smart and ingenuitive, that's even a fucking word, engineer who like turns like these patchwork ships into like functioning things. I'm talking about the kid that basically flew in like a tube from his ship to the moon. You know which guy I'm talking about? The guy that warned Earth that the Ormegas were coming, the Formics.
Right.
And they go to like this super huge mothership and they fuck it up or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. It
It's
was
pretty
interesting.
crazy.
And the way they have to attack it because of the way the outside of the ship is designed is really cool too, because the ship is designed in such a way that like any like it can kind of like emit power from any point, and it can like it's harder to destroy it.
Yeah, and like the buggers, I guess they're trying to terraform Earth, but one of the things we find out that they're shooting like this poison gas everywhere and just like killing every single thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they plant down in a couple of cities, China being one of them. And I think it's the second book where they're like in these like tunneling tanks, and they tunnel under like one of the motherships. I forgot what they do, but they tunnel and they make lava hit it or something like that. Pretty crazy stuff. And Major Rackham has a wife, or a fiance or something.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good like action packed little sci-fi book. Like the first one is like they're also different because the first one is like first contact. They don't quite know what to make of this thing that's in space, and there's like this conflict between like the miners and like the big corporations, and like there's always like not only is there conflict between like the humans and the aliens, there's also these other conflicts between the humans themselves. Like I know a lot of it is like, China blocking everyone from helping them defeat the aliens, and I think Mazer Rackham's team go AWOL just to help. So it's a pretty good book. I liked that trilogy. I haven't gotten into the second one yet. I do have the first book in the second trilogy.
Sweet.
Well, I don't think it's a trilogy. I think it's just 2 books. And
okay.
the second book, I think, was actually finished recently, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, when I looked it up earlier today, it said the first one came out in 2016, so that's entirely possible.
Yeah, so I'll get you those. And so what do you think overall of that those first Formic War books?
Yeah, I think they're interesting. I guess out of the different series I've read in the Ender's Game universe so far, I think I probably like the original trilogy the most. The original, or not trilogy, but the entire Ender Quintet original series. And then I would say I like the Ender Shadows series the second most, because that progressively gets better as it goes along, and in my opinion too, kind of like the original series, although maybe a little bit to a lesser extent with the original series, because I think maybe the middle book might be my favorite in that series if I remember correctly.
The middle book? You're talking about Xenocide, or
I think it might be
Speaker
that
of
one.
the Dead?
I think it's yeah, I don't remember whether it's Xenocide or Speaker for the Dead. Actually, I think it might be Xenocide. Is Xenocide book 3?
Xenocide is like the OCD girl.
Right.
And Speaker of the Dead is when they're basically examining the culture of those pig-like people. And it's like a murder mystery where they're trying to find out why some dude got dismembered. But
Which one is that again?
a speaker for the dead.
I
Like
think
there
it
was
might be that one. Yeah.
yeah, there was like a guy that got dismembered, and they're trying to figure out why. And they at the end of the book, what happens is that I think the guy died or something, or he didn't want to kill one of the pig guys, so they killed him because they didn't know that when you cut a human up, they don't turn into a big tree and continue on.
Right.
So, and then that caused like a crazy ass riot, and it wiped out like a lot of the pig people.
Okay.
And then I think second one was like the Chinese girl, and then they're trying to figure out like what to do with that virus, and also they were sending some type of murders, like a nuke from Earth or something to kill them off.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that was
And the
interesting.
fourth book is like when it gets like super crazy, where there's like what when they're creating like clones of themselves, and
Yeah.
they can travel wherever, and Ender's wife gets jealous of the AI.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty wacky, that fourth book.
Yeah, that one there's so much weird stuff that happens that it almost gets confusing in a few parts.
Yeah,
That's why I didn't like it quite as much as 3.
like Peter, like he creates like weird versions of Peter and his sister. And the weird thing is that his sister is actually with him.
Yeah,
So she gets to see this weird younger clone of herself.
that he can like make any way and edit any way he wants to.
Well, what happens is like the clone, he makes it like he doesn't do this on purpose. It's an accidental byproduct of creating like this faster than light travel system through the Ansible or whatever. But like the other guy that was deformed because he touched the electric fence. Do you remember which guy I'm talking about? Like his wife's son. One of his wife's son like tried to enter like I think they call them pequeños. I don't remember. They're like the pig people. He tried to help them or something, and he grabbed onto the electric fence, and then he like got all fucked up. You don't
No, I don't.
remember? He was like extremely disabled and slurred, and he had
No.
to use like the AI to speak for him because his speech was like horrible.
Oh, I remember that part, but that last part about the AI having a speaker room, but I don't remember the other parts.
Well, he was like extremely disabled, and then in the fourth book, he gets healed, and he falls in love with like the clone version of Valentine.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
weird.
yeah, that last book is strange. And then one of Ender's adopted sons has like a robotic eye or something. Like his weird his family is just strange. Because I know one of his family gets killed by the Porkers or whatever the hell you want to call them, by like a faction of them. But yeah, it's an interesting book. Oli's series. It's like the end of the series is so radically different from the beginning. Like
Yeah, that's for fucking sure, man.
it's like you would not expect it to end the way it did
Yeah,
by
like
reading the first
thousands
book.
of years have passed with many of the same characters due to like basically the way space travel works, and there's like all this weird bizarre shit with like clones and alien species and mind reading and AI and like religion and all kinds of weird stuff.
Right. Yeah, Orson Scott Card is definitely interesting. He creates interesting scenarios that are super wacky. Like I need to get you some of his Empire books, the ones that left wing people got really upset about.
Oh, why?
Because the bad guys in that book are like extreme leftists.
Oh, okay. That is possible. Like, it's not like
Yeah.
bad guys are always right wingers.
Well, that's basically what it seems that I don't know. I don't give a shit whether they're right wing or left wing. It's just a book, a
Yeah,
fictional book.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, yeah, it's a fucking book. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll get you some more. I'll try to get that second, the second Formic War for you, and
Sweet.
some more of the Expanse. I've still only read that first book, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, I can't really say much about where you're at now. But I'm pretty sure it's interesting.
I won't talk about Cibola Burns.
I need to catch up with you on that end. I suppose once I get around to it, we're probably going to discuss those things anyway.
Yeah, that's a good idea, man. Those are
Yeah,
definitely worth rereading. There's so much that happens.
yeah. Once I get around to it, and yeah, the show too. I've seen, I think, the first season.
Yeah, that I still need to watch the show too.
It's good. I recommend what I've watched. It follows pretty closely to the book, and the actors in the show are great. They do a really good job.
According to what I've heard them say on the Legendarium about it so far, the show is really close to the book, especially the first season. And the only like major thing that seems to be kind of different is some of the characters are a little different, and some of them are like really different. But apparently that's the only major difference.
Oh, okay, great. Was there anything else you had read?
Not anything else I can think of off the top of my head. I think that's plenty to talk about.
Okay, well, yeah, I just like you. I finished Treason. I got back into the Theranos headspace. I don't know, the Theranos whole debacle just intrigues me to no end. Um, do you know what I'm talking about?
No, what's Theranos?
Elizabeth Holmes was
Oh,
the
she is that the like about that book you sent me where that woman she like styled herself as the female
yes,
Steve Jobs, and then she basically started a company and became a billionaire based off of a whole bunch of bullshit with this new medical testing device that ultimately failed.
right.
Okay.
An obvious sociopath, like
Right.
fucking nuts.
Yeah.
It's so. What did you read the Bad Blood that I sent you?
Yeah, yeah, that must be what I'm thinking about. I thought I remembered reading a book about her. Yeah.
Yeah. So I read another book by one of the people that is talked about in Bad Blood, Tyler Schultz. He
Okay.
was one of the whistleblowers. He was the son of one of the board members. No, the grandson of one of the board members. And his grandfather was a former Secretary of State. Um, so he basically talks about the story kind of from his perspective, and it's a very short book. It's actually an Audible original, so you could actually only find it on Audible. So there's no like library version of this, but it's like seems it's more like I don't know. It feels like it's a long podcast with himself on it, talking about things from beginning to end. I know he's probably reading a script, but it seems like a very like highly produced news show, except he's the only one speaking on it. But it was really informative. That how much it affected him. how much pressure it put on him and his family, how much it drove him to almost suicide. Like there were times where he explained like the pressure was so heavy, and I think the main reason that the pressure was so heavy for him is that his grandfather wasn't supportive of his decision to be a whistleblower, and he basically couldn't talk to anybody about what was going on because he had to keep all of his fight. He was basically involved in a legal battle with Theranos, so he couldn't vent about it. He couldn't talk to anybody about it because he was legally obligated not to talk about it to anybody.
Right.
So his friends were like, "What the fuck's going on with Tyler? Like he's like hiding shit from everybody. He's not talking to everybody. He's like depressed all the time." Like the women that he was dating found out through it was like a show that he was a former Theranos employee. And she's like, "You used to work at Theranos?" Like, "Oh yeah, can't really talk about that." But yeah,
Right.
it's a pretty good book, and he kind of does highlight a couple things. Says if you read Bad Blood, one of the people in that book did commit suicide,
Right.
and he kind of explains like the type of pressures that were involved that would bring somebody to that kind of end. So I'm glad the guy survived and he didn't kill himself, but he was really smart about it because there was a time in his life where he was basically always being followed, and he started
Hmm.
getting really paranoid. Keeping knives like under his pillow, and he almost bought a gun, but he basically came to the realization that because of his mental state, he is more likely to use that gun on himself than to protect himself. So he just didn't do it. He didn't buy the gun. But yeah, it's a pretty good book. It's called Thicker Than Water, and it is only in audiobook form. It's an Audible original and exclusive, and that's Tyler Schultz. The reason I got back into the whole Theranos thing is because Elizabeth Holmes recently just is going on trial right now. And I was listening to a podcast that's basically just about like the Elizabeth Holmes scandal. And man, there's so much drama in it. And if you're interested, I'll tell you the podcast, what it's called.
Okay.
I don't know why this story just fascinates me so much. It's just like this crazy lady who was fucking megalomaniac, and so much so that she donned like this fake fucking voice, like this fake deep voice. Like, how weird do you have to be to like change the way you sound? You know how she sounds, right?
Yeah.
Like she sounds like she shot herself up with some testosterone.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the woman is a classic sociopath. The funny thing is, like, you don't hear anyone actually describe her that way, but she definitely there's definitely something wrong with her.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I read that book. I'm working my way through an Edgar Rice Burroughs book.
Oh yeah, I saw that on Goodreads. The first one in his like Martian series, right?
Yeah,
Barsoom? Yeah.
I'm almost finished. Like it's super primitive. Um, like primitive. It's like the softest sci-fi that could be. Like there's almost
Yeah,
no
yeah.
sci-fi in it.
It's like pulp sci-fi, basically.
Yeah, it's like even the science that they state is like objectively wrong, but yeah, it's just like a love story. This dude gets I don't know, he's like fighting in the Civil War one moment, and then the next moment he's on fucking Mars. Um, Um, and he meets like these Martians, and he gets enslaved, and he falls in love with some other enslaved lady, and he has like a dog that's like a Martian dog that's like super loyal, and apparently, like for some reason, he's able to like kill like 16-foot Martians without much issue using a sword. Uh, but yeah, it's a weird book. I probably will end up watching the movie once I get through some of these books to see what their interpretation of these books are. Because I know there is like a John Carter movie, right?
Yeah,
But yeah,
there's a movie. I've been meaning to watch it, but it looks like it might be kind of cheesy.
I don't know. I'll watch it anyway, even if it's cheesy. So yeah, the podcast, the Elizabeth Holmes podcast that I was talking about, it's called The Dropout. So that's if you're
Okay.
interested. It's like I don't know if you watch any of the or listen to any true crime podcasts.
No.
Sometimes I do. Um, I've listened to a few of those, like The Dropout, Doctor Death is a good one. Um, and what's that other one that I watched? It was like about this like black serial killer. Well, anyway, yeah, it's just kind of like in that vein where it's well, it's not quite true crime because it's not like about murder or anything, but it's definitely based off of like all the details surrounding the Elizabeth Holmes case and how she's a fucking crackpot. And she looks like really different now. Have you seen like pictures of her recently?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, she doesn't wear the turtlenecks anymore. Like she's not wearing that weird eye makeup anymore. Apparently she's married now and she's pregnant. And some people are basically speculating that she got pregnant on purpose for the trial to get
That's fucking
sympathy from the
cold, man.
jury. Well, dude, like she's trying to avoid a prison sentence.
She is pretty like a sociopath, like you said.
Yeah, I don't think that she would, but I think she would stoop that low. Like do it as a plan to avoid prison. Because another thing that she wants to do is she doesn't want to wear a mask in the courtroom because she thinks it's going to hurt her chances. And that's sad because people who are considered attractive have better chances of getting off on
Hmm.
whatever they're charged with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it
I
is.
don't know. It's kind of messed up the way that is.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Hopefully the lawyers do a good job, like the prosecutors do a good job at giving the jury the evidence showing that she's full of shit. Um, but yeah, her main defense right now, it's a Me Too type of defense. So her defense right now is that her ex-boyfriend Sonny, she's saying that he was so abusive that she would do anything that he said, and that she didn't have agency, and that all the decisions that she made regarding the business were because of him.
Yeah, what a fucking liar. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and the podcast I was listening to, it was like, nope. She made some of these questionable decisions before she was even dating this guy, so it's not. If the prosecution knows what they're fucking doing, then they should be able to point this out in the in the
And
court.
in that book, Bad Blood, they interview a lot of former employees who talked about how toxic the work environment was and how it was like a clusterfuck and they didn't know what they were doing.
Right. And even they would present her with evidence that shit is fucked up, and she would like deny it. So I don't know, man. It's just good stuff. I am fascinated by this case. It's all this billions of dollars, all these like high level people getting roped into it. It's nuts. But yeah, I didn't read too much. I did finish Path of Daggers recently. And then we probably will be talking about that next week, hopefully.
Yeah.
Along with the new trailer that dropped.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Man, that trailer. I was just listening to, or actually watching, Wheel of Time Spoilers reaction, and theirs is like an hour and 37 minutes long.
Oh, yeah, I watched that one too.
I haven't finished it yet, though.
Did you watch the Legendarium one?
Yes, I watched theirs also.
Cool.
Yeah, I watched the Legendarium's reaction. They liked it. I watched Daniel Green's critique of IGN's reaction.
Oh, yeah, I didn't watch that one yet. I've been meaning to watch that.
It's pretty bad. It's funny, too. It's hilarious. I'll tell you that. Like, I was laughing out loud of how ridiculous some of IGN's like trailer reaction was, because it's anybody that knows Wheel of Time, they're like, what the fuck did they think was happening? Like, they described shit like totally wrong. They're like, oh yeah, here you could see Rand and Egwene about to make love in Shatter Logoth, and like, fucking Shatter, that's not fucking Shatter Logoth.
You don't even see them in Shatter Logoth.
Exactly. So yeah, that totally makes sense. They're gonna try to fuck in a cursed city. Yeah, that seems like the most appropriate place to get it on.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's how bad it is. And the funny thing too is like, it's the same narrator throughout, and he pronounces like the names almost differently every time he says it.
Oh,
like,
yeah?
Yeah, it's real bad. It's funny. I think you'll enjoy it once you check it out. But when you check it out, do the Daniel Green one where he critiques it. It's hilarious.
I definitely will.
But yeah, that's it. I didn't do too much reading. Just the Treason, Thicker Than Water, Path of Daggers, and now I'm working on the Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff. How many more books are there in this series?
If I remember correctly, there are 11 in total.
Jesus. I don't think I'm going to get through all of those.
Yeah.
How many did you read?
Short, but yeah, there are a lot of them.
How many did you read?
I read all of them.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Jesus. How long did it take you?
I don't know. I kind of
read all these weird like Mars books.
Yeah, man. I thought some of them were like, if nothing else, they were just conceptually interesting, and I liked all the like cool things like sword fights and stuff.
Well, the biggest problem I have so far is this first one is read by, who do you think?
Oh yeah, is it Scott Brick?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Maybe that's probably the problem I'm having. I just don't like Scott Brick. I'm sorry, folks. I know he's popular. I just don't like him.
Yeah.
He's just like, I don't know. It's like someone from the 1950s who's not even of that era is reading this shit.
Yeah.
Like, I guess
that's even worse for Edgar Rice Burroughs, because that's like kind of what the writing style is like.
Yeah, I think it's thematically fits, but that's how Scott Brick reads everything.
Yeah.
Like, the worst fucking book ever that I heard him read was, Damn, what was that book? The one that we talked about.
I'm not sure.
The one that Apocalypse Now is based off of.
Oh, Heart of Darkness?
Yes, that's the worst Scott Brick book I have ever tried to listen to. Like, I noped out. I was like, hell no.
I'm glad that I haven't listened to it as an audiobook.
You wouldn't be able to. It's like unlistenable. Well,
That's like one of
basically,
my favorite books of all time, like because I've only read it in book form.
yeah, it's ruined. Scott Brick is not British.
No, he's not.
No, and he tries to read the entire first-person narrative of that book with a British accent.
Oh dear.
And his British accent is fucking horrible.
I bet it is, man.
It's not good. Scott Brick sucks at character work. All of his characters have the same exact voice. They all sound like Scott Brick.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't, it's so lazy.
Yeah. It's really,
like, I'm used to like
easy.
really good theater. Like, I don't know. It's like if we were to compare, say, hey, Stephen Pacey to Scott Brick. Stephen Pacey is like Harvard, and Scott Brick is like my local community college.
Is Stephen Pacey the Ender narrator /
No,
Treason?
Stephen Pacey is he's what you call him. Oh shoot. The damn book we just read.
Well, Treason?
Abercrombie.
Oh, Sharp Ends. Oh yeah. That guy. I'm getting a little feedback from your headphones, I think.
Some feedback. Oh, is it? Okay, what about now?
Now it's better.
Okay. I think I'm not mistaken. I think Stephen Pacey's the narrator. Or even somebody as simple as Michael Kramer.
Yeah, he's great too, and Kate Redding.
Yeah, they do fucking accents, and they do them good.
Yeah, they do them really well. To the point where it's well, some of it is because I had only heard them, but when I saw them on a few podcasts, like Daniel Green talked to them, or maybe a few other people, I did that thing where I thought your face does not match the way I pictured you from hearing your voice all the time.
Yeah, because you listen to Sharp Ends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm assuming you really enjoyed the Chev and chapters, right?
Yeah, I liked all the narrators in that book.
Well, it's all the same person.
Oh, right. Yeah, I liked all the characters, like the character voices.
Yeah, so when we're talking about Chev and her crazy companion, who's like this godlike warrior, is slightly insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like this Amazon redhead, likes to fuck dudes after battle.
Mm-hmm.
She fucked Warren of Bly from Heroes, but Stephen Pacey in one of those chapters, there's like a lot of fucking sex sounds.
Yeah.
It's the one where she has sex with Warren of Bly. It's like there's a ridiculous amount of grunting and I guess coming.
Yeah.
Like I went through because I always wanted to make like a compilation of Stephen Pacey making sex sounds. So I went and there's probably like 15 bookmarks just from that chapter.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
But yeah, Stephen Pacey's the man. And I like at the end of the Sharp Ends, they interview Stephen Pacey and Joe Abercrombie.
Yeah, I thought that was a great interview too.
One thing is, it's like I wasn't expecting Joe Abercrombie's voice to be that high pitched, I was expecting like, oh, grim dark. He's gonna sound like a bit rough. But no, he just sounds like a high pitched dude.
Yeah.
As he reads one of those chapters, I was like, oh, he sounds like someone who like writes or reads Shakespeare or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, Scott Brick sucks.
Yeah, he does. Agreed.
I just can't stand him.
And
I
I
had
think
to tolerate him. I had to tolerate him because he's just everywhere.
Yeah, I have to tolerate him for the same reason.
It's fucking unavoidable.
Yeah.
He ruined like the first 2 Foundation books for me.
Oh, that's a sin. Those books are awesome.
They are, but I don't know he doesn't do character voices. That's his problem. So when there's like
every
back and
character
forth,
voice is like cheesy and over the top.
well, when he has dialogue between the two characters, you can't differentiate who's talking because he doesn't have character voices.
Yeah, exactly.
And they all sound like melodramatic divas from like the 50s.
Yeah.
Like all of his characters sound like, even the guys.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just cheap to hire. Who knows what it is?
Yeah. All right. Well, I gotta get going. I think so. I think we should end it on that note. Scott Brick sucks.
Scott Brick sucks. Check us out. So you got your plugs.
Yeah, check out Mindgasms. Just did an awesome interview with Jared from Wisecrack recently about postmodernism and CRT and how public intellectuals kind of spread misinformation about it, in my opinion. And I'm also check out his channel tomorrow, Jared Bauer, where I'm going to talk with him about the new trailer that just came out for Matrix 4, The Matrix Resurrections, and we're going to talk about where it could possibly go in its philosophical and spiritual themes, which will be super fun to talk about. And also tomorrow, you and Chris and I'm not sure, I forgot to ask whether Shizan's going to join or not, because he can if he wants to, but we're going to talk about what I think we were mentioning it a little bit before we started recording about that recent stuff to do with Joe Rogan getting COVID and Dr. Rhonda Patrick kind of like, in my opinion, debunking a lot of the claims that people like Brett Weinstein were convincing Joe Rogan of in terms of vaccine hesitancy and the utility of ivermectin. And then also Biden pulling out of Afghanistan and warmongers not liking it, even though he did do it in like he could have done it in a better way. So we'll talk about all of that tomorrow. And yeah, check me out on social media, Andrew Mindgasms or Andrew Meintzer, and also my blog, mindgasms.theblogpress.com, where I write blogs about some of the ideas that we talk about, like culture and history and philosophy and whatnot. And I also publish my fiction on there, my novel that I'm writing, and stories and poems sometimes as well. And yeah, that's all my stuff.
All right, great. Yeah, I've done a lot of research about like COVID and Rogan and ivermectin, and I'm really mad at Rogan right now.
Yeah, he's being dumb about it, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's acting like everybody has access to the same resources he does, and that's just not the case.
Yeah,
like he got basically the same.
We'll talk about it more tomorrow, but like with all the shit he took, it's with all the shit he took, it would have made way more sense to just get the fucking vaccine, especially since it's free for everyone.
Right. Yeah, because if you got, we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I have a lot to say about that.
That would be fun to talk about, because I think Chris is a little more like he's a little more amiable to to Brett Weinstein's theories about it. So that'll be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. We'll definitely talk about that tomorrow. I'm super ready for that.
Sweet.
Also, yeah, so join us on Andrew's channel tomorrow. We're gonna talk about some really controversial shit like ivermectin and Joe's COVID diagnosis, Afghanistan, like basically like the hot topics in the news, which are basically horseworm, Rogan, and
yeah.
like I understand those criticisms for sure. Like some shit got way blown out of proportion.
Yeah. Like some people are getting carried away and saying like all ivermectin is the horse dewormer, and there is no difference between different types of ivermectin, and there can never be any reason that people take drugs meant for animals and animals take drugs meant for people.
Yeah, even though there's plenty of drugs that are meant for both.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, join us tomorrow on Andrew's channel while we talk about those controversial topics. And next week we're going to try to get the final Path of Daggers chat. I'm not even sure if we may finish it. It depends on how long we're going to riff on about that trailer.
Yeah,
and it's
possible.
possible.
End up doing 2 separate episodes if you want to. Depends.
Yeah, it's definitely possible because I know we basically just only have a 2-hour block with Tristram, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to fit in the trailer discussion and the last of the book. And I'm fine. We could do that and wait like a few weeks and then mop up Path of Daggers. So I'm already starting to.
That's cool with me. Yeah.
Yeah, because we'll tackle the relevant stuff first and riff on that for as long as we want, and then see if we want to move on to the next topic. I'm assuming we're gonna riff on it pretty hardcore, so because we're all pretty big fans of it. So check us out next week, and we'll talk about that Wheel of Time trailer and possibly the wrap up for Path of Daggers, but that might not be the case. So just preparing you guys all. So thank you everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon that tells you whenever we go live and drop some new content there. And also go to Andrew's channel. I will need to update the description because I don't have the same description because I'm now using StreamYard. And I guess I gotta like manually input some descriptions now.
Yeah, you got to do that in YouTube Studio after you set it up on StreamYard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for watching. I'm loving the StreamYard, so easy and convenient.
Yeah.
And fuck, I wish I had a better phone all this time. It would have been so much easier. It's freaking nuts. But join us next week, people. You have a good night.
Adios until next time, everyone.